All stories posted on our channel are stories from our subscribers and created by us based on real events we've experienced and witnessed. We post new stories every day for your entertainment, that we hope you enjoy them. Thank you.
I've always believed that a man's worth isn't measured by the car he drives or the house he lives in. My father taught me that. He was a carpenter in Duluth, Minnesota, a man who worked with his hands his whole life and died without a penny of debt, but also without much to show for his 57 years on this earth. He used to say, "Danny, the richest man isn't the one with the most money. It's the one who needs the least to be happy." I tried to live by that philosophy. Maybe that was my first mistake. My name is Daniel James Erickson, and I'm 45 years old. I was born and raised in the Iron Range of northern Minnesota, in a small town called Hibbing, that most people only know because it's where Bob Dylan grew. My family had been in the area for 4 generations, ever since my great-great-grandfather emigrated from Sweden in the 1880s to work in the iron mines. The Ericksons were never wealthy. We worked hard, we paid our bills, and we didn't complain. I learned the electrical trade from my Uncle Carl, who ran a small contracting business out of his garage. By the time I was 18, I could wire a house blindfolded. I got my journeyman's license at 21, and my master electrician's license at 25. I worked for other people for a few years, saving every penny I could. And then in 2005, when I was 26, I started my own company, Erickson Electric. It wasn't glamorous. I worked out of a beat-up Ford van, took whatever jobs I could get, and often put in 16-hour days just to keep the lights on. But slowly, steadily, the business grew. By 2010, I had 3 employees. By 2015, I had 12. And by 2020, Erickson Electric was one of the most respected electrical contractors in the Duluth Superior area, with 28 employees and contracts worth several $1,000,000. But here's the thing about running a blue-collar business in a blue-collar town. Nobody thinks you're successful. You could be pulling in $500,000 a year, but if you show up to work in jeans and a flannel shirt, if your hands are calloused and your truck is dusty, people assume you're just scraping by. That's how my wife saw me. I met Rebecca Ann Morrison at a friend's wedding in 2000. She was 24, I was 29, and she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. She had long auburn hair, pale blue eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. She was working as a receptionist at a law firm in Duluth, and she had dreams of something bigger, a life of comfort and status, far from the working-class world she had grown up in. I should have seen the warning signs from the beginning. On our first date, she asked me what I did for a living, and when I told her I was an electrician, her face fell for just a moment before she recovered. "Oh," she said, "that's practical." But I was young and in love, and I convinced myself that she would come to appreciate me for who I was, not what I did. We dated for 2 years, got engaged, and were married in June of 2010 at a church in Superior, Wisconsin, just across the bridge from Duluth. It was a modest wedding, about 80 guests, a reception at the local VFW hall, a honeymoon in the Wisconsin Dells. Nothing fancy, but it was what we could afford. The first few years were good. We bought a small house in the lakeside neighborhood of Duluth, a 2-bedroom bungalow that I spent my weekends fixing up. Rebecca got a job as an office manager at a dental practice, and between our 2 incomes, we were comfortable. Not rich, but comfortable. Our daughter, Lily, was born in 2012. She was the light of my life from the moment I first held her, a tiny bundle of pink skin and dark hair who gripped my finger like she never wanted to let go. I made a promise to myself that day. I would give this little girl everything I never had: a stable home, a good education, a father who was present and involved. 2 years later, our son Ethan came along. He was bigger than his sister had been, with my blonde hair and Rebecca's blue eyes. He was a handful from day one, curious, adventurous, always getting into things he shouldn't. But watching him grow, watching both my kids grow, filled me with a joy I couldn't describe. For a while, we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. The problem started around 2016, when Rebecca reconnected with some of her old friends from high school. One of them was a woman named Heather Lindstrom, who had married a surgeon named Dr. Kevin Lindstrom and was living what Rebecca considered the dream life: a big house in the fancy Congdon Park neighborhood, luxury cars, vacations to exotic destinations, and a lake home on Lake Vermilion, about an hour north of Duluth. Lake Vermilion was where the wealthy people of northern Minnesota went to escape. It was one of the largest lakes in the state, with over 1,000 miles of shoreline, crystal clear water, and some of the most expensive real estate in the region. A modest cabin on Lake Vermilion would set you back $500,000. A proper lake home, the kind with a boat lift and a private dock, could easily cost $1 million or more. Rebecca became obsessed with Heather's life. She started following her on social media, liking every photo of her lakeside sunsets and her designer handbag. She started comparing our life to Heather's and finding ours wanting. "Did you see Heather's new kitchen?" she would say. They just renovated the whole thing. Marble countertops, custom cabinets, the works. That's nice, I would reply, not really paying attention. When are we going to renovate our kitchen, Dan? These cabinets are 20 years old. We'll get to it eventually. Business has been, maybe next year. But next year never seemed to come, at least not fast enough for Rebecca, and the comparisons kept getting worse. Heather's taking the kids to Disney World for spring break. We've never taken our kids to Disney World. We went to the Wisconsin Dells last summer. The kids had a great time. The Wisconsin Dells isn't Disney World, Danny. It's not even close. I tried to be patient. I tried to remind her of everything we had. A nice home, healthy children, a stable income. But Rebecca didn't want stable. She wanted spectacular. And every time she saw Heather's life on Facebook or Instagram, she was reminded of everything she felt she was missing. The worst part was, I actually could have given her. Ericsson Electric was doing better than ever, and I had money saved. A lot of money, actually. But I had learned from my father to live below my means, to save for the future, to never let your lifestyle outpace your income. I drove a 10-year-old pickup truck, wore clothes from Target, and hadn't bought anything extravagant in years. To anyone looking at me from the outside, I appeared to be exactly what Rebecca thought I was. A hard-working but financially limited tradesman. What she didn't know was that I had been quietly building something that would change everything. It started in 2014 when I got a call from a real estate agent named Tom Hendrick. Tom was an old friend of my Uncle Carl's, and he had a tip for me. A property on Lake Vermilion was going into foreclosure, and it was going to be sold at auction for a fraction of its value. Danny, this place is a steal, Tom said. The previous owner overextended himself, built a beautiful home, but couldn't keep up with the payments. The bank just wants to get rid of it. I think you could pick it up for under $400,000. I was skeptical. Lake Vermilion properties never went for that cheap. But Tom sent me the listing, and I drove up to take a look. The property was on a peninsula called Pine Point, one of the most desirable locations on the lake. It had 300 feet of shoreline, a private dock, and views that stretched for miles. The house itself was a mess, half-finished, with exposed wiring and incomplete plumbing. But the bones were good. It was a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom log home with a stone fireplace, vaulted ceilings, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. I saw immediately what the previous owner had been trying to do. He had grand visions but no practical skills. He had hired contractors who had taken his money and done shoddy work. He had gotten in over his head. But I wasn't like him. I was an electrician with 20 years of experience. I knew plumbers and carpenters and HVAC technicians who owed me favors. I could finish this house myself, for a fraction of what it would cost anyone. I bought the property at auction for $385,000. I didn't tell Rebecca. Looking back, I know that was wrong. We were married. We were supposed to be partners. But I knew how she would react. She would want to sell our house in Duluth and move to the lake immediately, before the place was even habitable. She would want to show off to her friends, to post photos on Instagram, to prove that she was just as successful as Heather Lindstrom. And I wasn't ready for that. I wanted to finish the house properly, to do it right. I wanted it to be a surprise, a gift for my family, something we could enjoy for generations. So I kept it secret. For 6 years, I worked on that house. Every weekend I could spare, every vacation day I had, I drove up to Lake Vermilion and put in the hours. I rewired the entire electrical system. I hired my buddy Pete to redo the plumbing. I brought in a crew to finish the exterior and install new windows. Slowly, steadily, the house came together. By December of 2020, it was nearly complete. I had invested over $200,000 in renovations, on top of the original purchase price, and the house was now worth well over $1 million. It had everything: a gourmet kitchen, a master suite with a spa bathroom, a home theater in the basement, and a wraparound deck with the most stunning views on the lake. I was planning to reveal it to Rebecca and the kids on Christmas Eve. I had the whole thing planned out. We would drive up to the lake, pretending we were going to visit friends, and then I would pull into the driveway and hand Rebecca the keys. But life, as it often does, had other plans. 2 weeks before Christmas, Rebecca announced that we had been invited to Heather Lindstrom's year-end party. It was an annual event, apparently, a lavish gathering at the Lindstrom's Lake Vermilion home, attended by Duluth's social elite. Doctors, lawyers, business owners, anyone who was anyone. "We have to go," Rebecca said. "Everyone will be there." "I don't know, Beck. Those aren't really our people." "What do you mean, our people?" "They're my friends, Danny. Heather specifically invited us." I doubted that Heather had specifically invited us. More likely, Rebecca had hinted and pushed until an invitation was extended, but I knew better than to argue. When Rebecca set her mind on something, there was no stopping her. "Fine," I said. "We'll go." I had no idea that this party would change my life forever. The week leading up to the party was chaos. Rebecca spent hours agonizing over what to wear, trying on outfit after outfit and rejecting each one. I can't show up in something from Kohl's, she said, tossing a perfectly nice dress onto the... Everyone there will be wearing designer label. No one's going to be looking at your clothes. You don't understand, Dan. These people notice everything. If I show up looking like what? Like a tradesman's wife, she finished, the words hitting me like a punch to the gut. I didn't say anything. What could I say? She had just told me exactly what she thought of me, of our life, of everything I had worked for. Rebecca ended up ordering a dress online from Nordstrom, spending $400 that we probably shouldn't have spent. She got her hair done at a salon in Canal Park, another $150. She bought new shoes, new earrings, a new clutch purse. By the time she was finished, she had spent nearly $1,000 on a single party. I wore the same suit I had worn to my cousin's wedding 3 years earlier. It still fit more. The night of the party, December 19th, was cold and clear. The temperature had dropped to about 15 degrees, and the roads were icy as we drove north on Highway 53 toward Lake. The kids were staying with Rebecca's mother for the night, so it was just the two of us in my pickup truck, Rebecca staring out the window in sullen silence. You know, she said about halfway there, Heather's husband drives a Mercedes. Good for him. I'm just saying, it would be nice to show up in something other than a truck that smells like sawdust. This truck has been good to us, Beck. Paid for itself 10 times over. That's not the point. Then what is the point? She didn't answer. We arrived at the Lindstrom house just after 7 o'clock. Even from the driveway, I could see that the place was impressive. A massive cedar and stone structure with a 3-car garage and enough outdoor lighting to be visible from space. There were at least a dozen cars parked along the circular drive, most of them luxury vehicles, BMW, Audis, a couple of Range Rovers, and yes, a Mercedes. Rebecca practically leaped out of the truck before I had even put it in park. She smoothed her dress, checked her hair in the side mirror, and strode toward the front door with a confidence that seemed forced. I followed more slowly, taking in the scene. The house was beautiful, I had to admit. But as an electrician, I noticed things that other people didn't. The outdoor fixtures were cheap Chinese imports, the kind that would rust within a few years. The landscape lighting was installed incorrectly, with the wires exposed in several places. Someone had cut corners. The front door was answered by a woman I assumed was hired help, a young blonde in a black dress and white apron. She took our coats and directed us to the great room, where the party was in full swing. The great room was exactly what you would expect from a house like this. Vaulted ceilings, a massive stone fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the frozen lake. There were about 50 people milling around, holding cocktails and making small talk. A jazz quartet played softly in the corner, and waiters circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres. Rebecca spotted Heather immediately and made a beeline. I grabbed a beer from the bar and found a quiet corner where I could observe. Heather Lindstrom was everything Rebecca admired. Tall, blonde, impeccably dressed in what I assumed was a very expensive outfit. She had the kind of casual confidence that comes from never having to worry about money, the kind of ease that money buys. She greeted Rebecca with air kisses and introduced her to the other women in her circle. I recognized a few faces in the crowd. There was Dr. Kevin Lindstrom himself, holding court near the fireplace with a group of men who looked like they had stepped out of a catalog. There was Jim Patterson, who owned the Ford dealership on Central Entrance. There was Mark Gustafson, a real estate developer who had made a fortune building luxury condos on Park Point. And there, in the corner, nursing a whiskey and looking as uncomfortable as I felt, was Tom Hendricks, the same real estate agent who had told me about the Lake Vermilion property 6 years. I made my way over to him. Tom, didn't expect to see you here. He looked up and grinned. Danny Erickson. Well, I'll be damned. What brings you to the Lion's Den? My wife is friends with Heather, or wants to be. Tom nodded knowingly. Ah, say no more. My wife is the same way. These parties are torture, but happy wife, happy life, right? Something like that. We chatted for a while, catching up on business and family. Tom had aged since I last saw him. More gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes, but he was still the same friendly, slightly cynical guy I remembered. So, he said, lowering his voice, how's the lake house coming along? I glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Almost done. Should be finished by the end of the month. No kidding? That's fantastic. You've put a lot of work into that place. 6 years of weekends and vacations, but it's worth it. Have you told Rebecca yet? I shook my head. Planning to surprise her on Christmas Eve. Tom raised an eyebrow. That's quite a surprise. She's going to lose her mind. That's the idea. We were interrupted by a commotion near the center of the room. Heather was clinking a spoon against her champagne glass, calling for everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, thank you all for coming to our annual year-end celebration. Kevin and I are so grateful to have such wonderful friends, and we wanted to take a moment to share some exciting news. She paused dramatically. As many of you know, we've been thinking about expanding our presence on the lake, and I'm thrilled to announce that we've just closed on a second property, A beautiful 5-acre parcel on Fraser Bay that we're planning to develop into a family compound. 3 guest cabins, a main lodge, and a private beach. Construction starts in the spring. The room erupted in applause. Rebecca was clapping the loudest, her eyes shining with admiration, and I looked at Tom, who shrugged. Must be nice, he said dryly. The party continued. I nursed my beer, made polite conversation with a few people, and tried not to count the minutes until we could leave. Rebecca was in her element, flitting from group to group, laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny, and complimenting outfits that probably cost more than my truck. Around 9 o'clock, I went looking for her. I found her on the deck overlooking the lake, standing with Heather and a few other women. They were admiring the view, the frozen expanse of Lake Vermilion glittering under the stars. It's just so peaceful, Heather was saying. I tell Kevin all the time, this is where I want to grow old. Waking up to this view every morning, watching the sunset over the water every evening. There's nothing like it. It's beautiful, Rebecca. I've always dreamed of having a place on the lake. Well, you should, Heather said. I mean, it's an investment. Property values on Vermilion have been going up every year. If you buy now, it'll be worth twice as much in 10 years. Rebecca laughed, but there was an edge to it. Maybe someday, if Danny ever makes enough money. The other women exchanged glances. I felt my face flush. What does your husband do again? One of them asked. He's an electrician, Rebecca said. He has his own company. Oh, that's nice. The condescension was palpable. I saw Rebecca's shoulders stiffen, saw her smile become fixed and brittle. It pays the bills, she said. But it's not exactly... She trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the house, at the lake, at the life she so desperately wanted. Heather patted her arm sympathetically. Well, you never know what the future holds. Maybe Danny will strike it rich someday. Maybe, Rebecca said, but her tone made it clear she didn't believe it. I stepped back from the doorway, not wanting them to see me. My heart was pounding, my hands clenched into fists. This was what my wife thought of me. This was what she told her friends when she thought I couldn't hear. I went back to the bar and ordered a whiskey, then another. Around 10 o'clock, Rebecca found me. There you are, she said. I've been looking everywhere. Heather's about to give us a tour of the house. Come on. I think I'll pass. Danny, don't be like that. This is important to me. Why? So you can see all the things we don't have? Rebecca's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Forget it. No. Tell me. What did you mean by that? I set down my glass and looked at her. I heard you, Beck, on the deck, talking about how I'm just an electrician, how I'll never make enough money for a lake house. Is that really what you think of me? Rebecca had the decency to look embarrassed. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? Danny, look around. Look at this house, at these people. They have everything, and we have a bungalow in Lakeside and a truck that's older than our daughter. Don't you ever want more? I want to be happy. I want our kids to be happy. That's enough for me. Well, it's not enough. The words hung in the air between us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Rebecca turned and walked away, leaving me alone at the bar with my whiskey and pride. The tour of the Lindstrom house was everything Rebecca had hoped for and everything I had. Heather led the group through room after room of carefully curated luxury. The gourmet kitchen with its sub-zero refrigerator and wolf range, the master suite with its spa bathroom and walk-in closet the size of our living room, the home theater with its leather recliners and projection screen, the wine cellar, the game room, the gym, and through it all, Rebecca oohed and awed, her eyes drinking in every detail. This is incredible, she kept saying. Just incredible. I hung back, observing. The house was impressive, I had to admit, but it wasn't to my taste. Everything was too perfect, too staged, like a showroom rather than a home. There were no family photos on the walls, no children's toys in the corners, no signs of actual life being lived. My lake house was different. It had character. It had warmth. It had been built with love and sweat and my own 2 hands. But Rebecca didn't know that. And the way things were going tonight, I wasn't sure I wanted to tell her. The tour ended in the great room, where Heather invited everyone to enjoy dessert and coffee. The waiters brought out trays of elaborate pastries and chocolate truffles, and the guests clustered in small groups, murmuring their appreciation. Rebecca pulled me aside. Did you see the master bathroom? She whispered. It had a heated floor. A heated floor, Danny. I saw it. And the closet. Heather has a whole room just for her shoes. She must have 200 pairs. Good for her. Rebecca looked at me, frustration evident in her eyes. What is your problem tonight? I don't have a problem, I'm just tired. You're always tired. You're always making excuses. Danny, these people are living the life we could be living if you just tried harder. Tried harder? I repeated, my voice rising slightly. Beck, I work 60 hours a week. I've built a successful business from nothing. What more do you want from me? I want you to want more. I want you to look at this house and think, I want that for my family, but you don't. You're content with our little bungalow, little truck, and little life. There's nothing wrong with our life. There's nothing exceptional about it either. Before I could respond, Heather appeared at Rebecca's elbow. Everything okay over here? Her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Fine, Rebecca said, forcing a smile of her own. Just having a little disagreement about home improvement projects. Oh, I know how that goes. Kevin and I fought for months about whether to add the guest wing, but in the end, I won. She laughed, a tinkling sound that grated on nerves. I always win. Must be nice, I muttered. Heather's smile faltered slightly. I'm sorry? Nothing. Excuse me. I walked away, heading for the French doors that led to the deck. I needed air, needed to get away from the champagne and the small talk and my wife's disappointed face. The deck was empty now, too cold for most people to linger. I stood at the railing, looking out at the frozen lake, my breath forming clouds in the frigid air. In the distance, I could see the lights of other houses dotting the shoreline. One of them, invisible in the darkness, was mine, my lake house. The secret I had been keeping for 6 years. I thought about Rebecca's words. She wanted more. She wanted exceptional. She wanted a life like Heather's. What she didn't understand was that I had already given her that. She just didn't know it yet. For a moment, I considered telling her right then and there, walking back into the party, taking her by the hand, and driving her to Pine Point to show her what I had built. I imagined the look on her face when she saw the house, the way her eyes would widen, the way she would throw her arms around me and apologize for ever doubting me. But another part of me hesitated. Did she deserve to know? After everything she had said tonight, after the way she had talked about me to her friends, did she deserve this gift? I was still wrestling with that question when I heard the door open behind me. Danny? It was Rebecca. She had put on her coat and was hugging herself against the cold. Can we talk? She asked. I thought we were talking. I mean really talk. Without fighting. I turned to face her. In the moonlight, she looked almost like the woman I had married 12 years ago. Beautiful, vulnerable, uncertain. But there was something else in her eyes now. Something that hadn't been there before. A hardness. A dissatisfaction. What do you want to say? I asked. Rebecca took a deep breath. I know I've been difficult. Tonight and other nights. I know I've been comparing our life to other people's, and that's not fair to you. No, it's not. But Danny, you have to understand where I'm coming from. I grew up with nothing. My parents worked their whole lives and had nothing to show for it. When I married you, I thought things would be different. I thought we would build something together, something better than what we came from. We have built something. We have a home, healthy kids, a successful business. But it's not enough, she interrupted. Look at this place, Danny. Look at what Heather has. She grew up the same way I did, in the same neighborhood, with the same nothing. But she married Kevin, and now she has everything. And I married you, and I have... She trailed off, but the unspoken words hung in the... And I have nothing. I felt something crack inside me. Not break, not yet, but crack. Like ice on a lake in early spring, the first sign that the thaw is coming. You know what, Rebecca? I said quietly. You're right. You did marry an electrician, a tradesman, a man who works with his hands for a... And I'm sorry if that's not good enough. I'm sorry if I'm not Kevin Lindstrom with Mercedes and his lake house and his family compound. But this is who I am. This is who I've always been. If you can't accept that, if I can't accept that, what? You'll leave me? No, I said. But maybe you'll... Rebecca stared at me, her eyes filling with tears. I don't want to leave you. I love you. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like... It feels like you love the idea of what I could be if I was someone else. That's not fair. Neither is what you said on this deck an hour ago. Neither is the way you've been treating me. We stood there in the cold, the silence stretching between us. Then Rebecca wiped her eyes and squared her shoulders. I'm going back inside, she said. Are you coming? In a minute. She nodded and went back through the door, leaving me alone with the stars and the frozen lake. I stayed on the deck for another 10 minutes, thinking about my marriage, about my life, about the choices I had made and the secrets I had kept. When I finally went back inside, the party was winding down. Guests were putting on their coats, saying their goodbyes, heading out to their luxury cars. Rebecca was standing near the door with Heather, having one final conversation. I collected our coats from the hired help and joined them. Just such a wonderful evening, Rebecca was saying. Thank you so much for inviting us. Of course, Heather said. We'll have to do it again soon. Maybe in the summer, when the lake is open. You could bring the kids out for a weekend. That would be amazing. But, well, we don't have a boat. Oh, don't worry about that. Kevin has 3 boats. He won't miss one. Rebecca laughed, but I could see the longing in her eyes, the desire for a life she thought she would never have. Anyway, Heather continued, it was so nice to see you both. Danny, take care of this one. She patted Rebecca's arm. She's a gem. I know, I said flatly. We made our way to the truck, crunching through the snow in the driveway. Rebecca was quiet, lost in her own thoughts. I unlocked the doors and we climbed in. The engine took a moment to turn over in the cold, but eventually it roared to life. As I was backing out of the driveway, Rebecca spoke. You know, Heather told me something interesting tonight. What's that? She said there's a property for sale on the north shore of the lake, a fixer-upper. She thought maybe we could afford it. I kept my eyes on the road. Did she? The asking price is $450,000. We'd have to get a loan, but maybe we could make it work. What do you think? I think $450,000 is a lot of money for a fixer-upper. But it's Lake Vermilion, Danny. Property here only goes up in value. It would be an investment. I didn't respond. I was thinking about my own property on Lake Vermilion, the one I had bought for $385,000 6 years ago and spent $200,000 renovating, the one that was now worth over $1 million. Danny, what do you think? I think we should talk about it later, I said. It's been a long night. Rebecca sighed and turned to look out the window. We drove home in silence. I didn't sleep well that. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Rebecca's breathing beside me. She had fallen asleep almost immediately, exhausted from the party and the emotions of the evening. But my mind was racing. I thought about the last 6 years, all the weekends spent driving to Lake Vermilion, working on the house until my hands were raw and my back was aching. All the lies I had told, not big lies, but small ones, explaining where I was going and what I was doing. Business stuff, I would say, meeting with a client, checking on a job site. Rebecca had never questioned it. She was so wrapped up in her own world, her own dissatisfactions, that she barely noticed what I was doing. I had told myself that the secrecy was for a good reason. I wanted to surprise her, to give her something wonderful, to prove that I was capable of providing the life she wanted. But now I wondered if that was really true. Maybe I had kept the house secret because I didn't trust her. Maybe I knew, deep down, that she would find a way to spoil it. Or maybe I kept it secret because it was mine, something that belonged to me alone, untouched by her criticism and her complaints. Around 5 in the morning I gave up on sleep and went downstairs to make coffee. The house was quiet, the kids still at their grandmother's. I sat at the kitchen table, watching the sky lighten through the window, and thought about what to do next. The original plan was to reveal the house on Christmas Eve, 5 days away. I had even arranged for us to drive up there as a family, pretending we were going to see the northern lights. But after last night I wasn't sure I wanted to go through with it. Rebecca's words still stung. When will you ever make enough money? There's nothing exceptional about our life. You're content with your little bungalow, and your little truck, and your little life. If I showed her the house now, it would feel like I was proving something, defending myself, justifying my existence. And that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted her to appreciate me for who I was, not for what I owned. But that wasn't going to happen, was it? Rebecca had made it clear what she valued, and it wasn't hard work or integrity or family. It was status. It was money. It was the ability to keep up with Heather Lindstrom. I was still sitting there, lost in thought, when Rebecca came downstairs. You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down across from me. About last night, she began. We don't have to talk about it. Yes, we do. Danny, I said some things I shouldn't have. I was frustrated, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry. I looked at her. She seemed genuine, her eyes soft and apologetic. But I had seen this before. She would apologize. Things would be okay for a while. And then the next time we were around her friends, the comparisons would start again. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully. But Beck, this isn't just about last night. This has been building for years, and I don't know how much more I can take. What are you saying? I'm saying that I need you to decide what you really want. Do you want a husband who works hard and provides for his family? Or do you want a fantasy? Because I can't be both. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. I want you, she finally said. I want us. I know I've been unfair. I know I've been comparing our life to other people, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. Sometimes love isn't enough, Beck. Sometimes you have to actually respect the person you're married to. I do respect. Do you? Because when you're talking to Heather about how I'll never make enough money, that doesn't feel like respect. Rebecca winced. You heard that. I heard it. Danny, I don't know what to say. I was embarrassed. Everyone there had so much, and we have so little. We don't have so little. I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. We have a house. We have 2 healthy children. We have a business that I built from scratch. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to give you this life? I know. No, you don't. You don't know anything. You don't know about the 80-hour weeks, the years of scraping by, the times I didn't take a salary so I could pay my employees. You don't know about the sleepless nights, worrying about whether I'd make payroll, whether I'd lose a contract, whether I'd fail. I was breathing hard, my heart pounding. And you definitely don't know about everything I've sacrificed to build something for this family, something that you're not even aware of. Rebecca stared at me. What do you mean? What have you sacrificed? I opened my mouth to tell her, to reveal everything. The lake house, the 6 years of work, the $1 million property that I had been keeping secret. But I stopped. If I told her now, in the middle of an argument, it would come out wrong. It would sound like I was bragging, or defending myself, or using the house as a weapon to shut her up. And that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted her to deserve it. And right now, she didn't. Nothing, I said. Forget it. Danny, I said forget it. I'm going to take a shower. I stood up and left the kitchen, leaving Rebecca alone with her coffee and her questions. The next few days were tense. Rebecca and I circled each other carefully, avoiding the topics that might lead to another argument. We went through the motions of preparing for Christmas, decorating the tree, wrapping presents, planning the holiday meal. But there was a distance between us that hadn't been there before. The kids noticed. Lily, who was 8 years old and perceptive beyond her years, asked me one evening if Mommy and I were fighting. No, sweetheart, I told her. Just tired from the holiday. You seem sad, Dad. I'm not sad. I'm just thinking. She climbed onto my lap and hugged me. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Lily. More than anything. I held her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, and felt my resolve harden. Whatever happened between Rebecca and me, these kids would be okay. I would make sure of it. On December 22nd, I drove up to Lake Vermilion alone. I told Rebecca I had a job site to check on, a commercial project in Virginia, Minnesota, that was running behind schedule. She didn't question it. She was too busy planning a Christmas Eve dinner that would rival Heather Lindstrom's. The drive took about an hour, north on Highway 53, and then east on Highway 169 toward Tower. The landscape was bleak and beautiful, snow-covered forests stretching to the horizon or a pale gray sky. When I reached the turnoff for Pine Point, I felt my heart lift. This was my place, my creation, my secret. The house looked spectacular in the winter light. The log exterior gleamed with fresh stain, and the windows sparkled. Smoke was rising from the chimney. I had arranged for the caretaker to turn on the heating system before I arrived. I parked in the driveway and walked to the front door. My boots crunched on the freshly plowed walkway. Inside, the house was warm and welcoming. The great room was dominated by a massive stone fireplace, flanked by built-in bookshelves that I had installed myself. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the lake, the ice stretching for miles. I walked through each room, checking the details. The kitchen, with its granite countertops and custom cabinetry. The master suite, with its king-sized bed and spa bathroom. The children's rooms, which I had decorated with their interests in mind. Lily's room had a princess theme. Ethan's had dinosaurs. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. I sat down in one of the leather chairs by the fireplace and pulled out my phone. I had a decision to make. Option 1. I could stick with the original plan. Bring the family up here on Christmas Eve, reveal the house, hope that Rebecca would be so overwhelmed with gratitude that she would forget everything she had said at the party. Option 2. I could postpone wait until things between us were better, until Rebecca had demonstrated that she actually appreciated me before sharing this gift. Option 3. I could tell her now, call her up, explain everything, and see how she reacted. I stared at the phone for a long time. Then I made a call, but not to Rebecca. Tom, it's Danny Erickson. Danny, what's up? How'd the party go? That's why I'm calling, actually. I need your advice. I told him everything. The conversation on the deck, the argument in the truck, the tense days that followed. Tom listened without interrupting, only occasionally making a sympathetic noise. So, I concluded, what do you think I should do? Tom was silent for a moment. Danny, I've known you for 20 years. You're one of the most hard-working, honest, decent guys I've ever met, and I've known Rebecca almost as long. She's a good woman, but she's got a blind spot when it comes to money and status. Tell me something I don't know. Here's the thing. You've spent 6 years building this house, keeping it secret, planning this big reveal. But what's the point? If you give her this house and she just wants more, then what? You'll be right back where you started, except now she'll be comparing your Lake Vermilion house to Heather's lake house. So what are you saying? Don't tell her? I'm saying, think about why you're telling her. Is it because you want to share something wonderful with your family? Or is it because you want to prove something to your wife? I didn't have an answer. Danny, here's my advice. Go back home, have Christmas with your family, and see how things go. If Rebecca starts acting like the woman you fell in love with, then tell her about the house. But if she keeps comparing, keeps complaining, keeps making you feel like you're not enough, then maybe it's time to have a different conversation. You mean divorce? I mean honesty. Tell her how you feel. Tell her what you've built, and then let her decide what she really wants. I thanked Tom and hung up. His words had given me a lot to think about. I sat by the fire for another hour, watching the shadows lengthen across the frozen lake. Then I locked up the house and drove home. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow and a temperature drop that made your teeth ache. I had decided to follow Tom's advice. See how things went, gauge Rebecca's behavior, and then decide whether to reveal the house. It wasn't the grand surprise I had originally planned, but it felt more honest, more real. The day started well enough. We all gathered around the tree to open one present each, a family tradition, and the kids were delighted with their gifts. Lily got a set of art supplies she had been wanting, and Ethan got a new video. Rebecca opened a necklace I had bought her, a simple gold chain with a small diamond pendant. She seemed pleased, though I noticed she checked the brand name on the box. We spent the afternoon preparing for the evening meal. Rebecca had invited her parents over, along with my mother, for a traditional Scandinavian Christmas dinner. Lutefisk for the adults who liked it was basically nobody and was tradition. Swedish meatballs, lefse, and krumkake for dessert. Around 4 o'clock, Rebecca pulled me aside. "Danny, I want to apologize again. For the party. For everything I said. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation, and you're right. I've been unfair to you. I appreciate that, Beck. And I want you to know that I love our life. I love you. I know I sometimes get caught up in what other people have, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate what we have." I looked at her, searching her eyes for sincerity. She seemed genuine, but I had heard apologies before. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I love you too." She hugged me, and for a moment, it felt like old times. Before Heather, before the comparisons, before the resentment. Maybe Tom was wrong, I thought. Maybe this is the turning point. Maybe everything will be okay. The dinner was a success. The lutefisk was as disgusting as ever. But the meatballs were excellent and my mother's lefse was perfect. The kids were excited about Santa's impending visit, and even the grandparents seemed to be getting along for. After dinner, while the adults were having coffee and the kids were playing with their new toys, Rebecca's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face lit up. "Oh my God," she said. "Heather just posted pictures of their Christmas Eve. You have to see this." She held out her phone to show me. Heather and Kevin Lindstrom were standing in front of a massive Christmas tree, surrounded by mountains of presents. Their children, all 4 of them, were dressed in matching pajamas. The caption read, "Grateful for another blessed year. Merry Christmas from our lake home to yours." "Look at that tree," Rebecca said. "It must be 12 feet tall." "It's a nice tree," I said. "And look at the presents. There have to be 100 boxes on." Heather has 4 kids. "That's 25 presents each. Doesn't seem that crazy." Rebecca wasn't listening. She was scrolling through the comments. Hundreds of them, all gushing about how perfect Heather's life was. "I wish we could have a Christmas like that," she said softly. I felt the crack inside me widen. "What's wrong with our Christmas?" "Nothing's wrong with it. I just mean, it would be nice to have a lake home, to have that kind of life." "Rebecca, we talked about this. You said you appreciated what we have." "I do appreciate it. I'm just saying, it would be nice to have more. Is that so wrong?" I looked at her, at the woman I had married 12 years ago, and I made a decision. "Come with me," I said. "What? Now?" "Danny, we have guests. They'll be fine. This will only take a few minutes." I took her hand and led her upstairs to our bedroom. I closed the door and sat her down on the. "Danny, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping secret for 6 years. Her eyes widened. "What kind of secret?" "Do you remember in 2014 when I told you I was thinking about expanding the business? Buying more equipment? Hiring more people?" "Vaguely." "Well, I didn't do that. Instead, I bought a property. On Lake Vermilion." Rebecca stared at me. "You... what?" "I bought a house, a fixer-upper, on Pine Point. I've been working on it for 6 years, evenings and weekends, whenever I could. And it's finished now. It's been finished for a month." "You bought a house," she repeated. "On Lake Vermilion, without telling me." "Yes. For 6 years." "Yes." I watched as the information sank in. Her face went through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, disbelief, and then something I hadn't expected: anger. "You kept this from me for 6 years," she said. "We've been married for 12 years, and for half of our marriage, you've been lying to me." "I wasn't lying. I was planning a surprise." "A surprise?" "Danny, that's not a surprise. A surprise is a birthday party or a piece of jewelry. This is a major financial decision that you made without consulting me. This is betrayal." "Betrayal? I bought you a lake house. The lake house you've been dreaming about. I never asked you to buy me a lake house. I asked you to be honest with me, to include me in our life, and instead you've been sneaking around for 6 years, keeping secrets, lying about where you were going and what you were doing." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're mad at me? After everything you said at Heather's party? After all the years of complaining about how I don't make enough money? I tell you that I actually built you $1 million house, and you're mad at me? $1 million? Her voice cracked. "You spent $1 million without telling me?" "I invested $585,000 over 6 years. The house is now worth over $1 million. It was a smart investment." "I don't care if it was a smart investment. I care that my husband has been living a double life." We were both shouting now, our voices carrying through the walls. I heard footsteps on the stairs, probably one of the grandparents, coming to see what the commotion was about. "You know what, Rebecca? I'm done. I'm done apologizing for who I am. Done trying to prove myself to you. I built something amazing. Something that most people only dream of. And instead of being grateful, you're attacking me. What does that tell you about our marriage? It tells me that my husband doesn't trust me. It tells me that you've been hiding things from me for years. How can I believe anything you say? The door opened. It was my mother, looking concerned. Is everything okay in here? Fine, Mom, I said. Just a discussion. It didn't sound like a discussion. Rebecca stood up, wiping her eyes. I need some air, she said. I'm going for a walk. She pushed past my mother and went downstairs. A moment later, I heard the front door open and close. My mother looked at me. What happened? I told her about the lake house. Ah, she nodded slowly. I was wondering when Danny, I'm your mother. I've known since you bought the Tom Hendricks can't keep a secret to save his life. I sat down on the bed, suddenly exhausted. I thought she would be happy. I thought she would finally see that I'm not the failure she thinks I am. My mother sat down beside me and took my Danny, you've never been a failure. You're one of the hardest working men I've ever known, just like your father was. But Rebecca, she has her own issues, her own insecurities. And a lake house isn't going to fix those. So what do? You give her time, let her process this. And then you have an honest conversation about what you both want from this marriage. She kissed my forehead, the way she used to when I was a child. It's Christmas Eve, sweetheart. Whatever happens, try to enjoy it, for the kids' sake. She left, and I sat alone in the bedroom, listening to the sounds of the house below. The kids laughing, the grandparents talking, the Christmas music playing softly on the stereo. After a few minutes, I got up and went downstairs. Rebecca hadn't come back yet, and I was starting to worry. I put on my coat and went outside to look for her. I found her at the end of the driveway, standing in the snow, staring up at the stars. Beck? She turned to look at me. Her face was streaked with tears. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For reacting the way I did. You're right. I should be grateful. You built something amazing, and instead of appreciating it, I attacked you. I walked over to stand beside her. I should have told you. Tom was right. Keeping it secret for so long, it wasn't fair to you. No, it wasn't. But I understand why you did it. I've been so focused on what we don't have. I never stopped to appreciate what we do have, including a husband who would spend 6 years building his family a dream home. We stood there in the snow, the cold biting at our faces, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were actually seeing each other. I want to see it, Rebecca said. The house. Can you take me there? Now. It's Christmas Eve. I know, but I can't wait. I need to see what you built. I thought about the kids, about the grandparents, about the presents still waiting to be opened, and then I thought about my wife, standing in the snow, asking to see the thing I had created. Okay, I said, let's go. We drove north through the snow, the truck's headlights cutting through the darkness. Rebecca was quiet, her hands folded in her lap. I couldn't tell what she was thinking. How far is it? She asked. About an hour. Pine Point on the eastern shore. Pine Point? That's one of the nicest areas on the lake. I know. She fell silent. The roads were mostly empty on Christmas Eve, just a few cars heading to or from family gathering. We passed through Tower, a small town on the western edge of the lake, and then turned onto the county road that led to Pine Point. As we got closer, I started pointing out landmarks. That's the marina where I keep the boat, and that's the golf course. It's one of the top-rated courses in the state. We have a boat? A pontoon, 22 feet. I bought it last summer. Rebecca shook her head slowly, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. The turnoff for Pine Point was marked by a stone pillar with the words Pine Point Estates carved into it. The road beyond was narrow and winding, cutting through dense forest. The lots out here are at least 3 acres each, I explained. Privacy was important to me. How much land do we have? 5 acres, 300 feet of shoreline. I made the final turn onto our driveway, and there it was. The house I had spent 6 years building. In the darkness, with the outdoor lights illuminating the exterior, it looked like something out of a magazine. The log walls glowed warmly, and smoke rose from the stone chimney. The windows sparkled, and through them you could see the great room with its vaulted ceilings and crackling fireplace. Rebecca gasped. Danny, it's beautiful. Wait until you see the inside. I parked the truck and came around to open her door. Together, we walked up the stone pathway to the front entrance. I unlocked the door and stepped aside to let her in. Rebecca walked into the great room and stopped, her hand flying to her mouth. The room was even more impressive in person than in photos. The ceiling rose 20 feet overhead, supported by massive log beams. The stone fireplace dominated one wall, flanked by built-in bookshelves. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the lake, the ice glittering under the stars. "Oh my God," Rebecca whispered. I watched as she explored, moving from room to room, exclaiming at each new discovery. The gourmet kitchen with its granite counters and professional-grade appliances, the master suite with its king-sized bed and spa bathroom, the children's rooms, decorated perfectly for Lily and You did all this? She asked, standing in the home theater with its leather recliners and projection screen. Not all of it. I had help with the plumbing and some of the finish work, but the electrical, the framing, the design, that was all me. She turned to look at me, her eyes shining. Danny, I had no idea. I had no idea you were capable of something like this. That's the problem, isn't it? You never had faith in me. That's not. It is, Beck. For years you've been comparing me to other people, finding me wanting. And all this time, I was building something that puts the Lindstrom's place to shame. Rebecca looked around the home theater, then back at me. What do you mean, puts their place to shame? This house is twice the size of theirs. Better construction, better views, better everything. Their house is a McMansion built by the lowest bidder. This is a custom log home built with care and craftsmanship. How do you know what their house is like? Because I'm an electrician, I notice things. At their party, I saw cheap fixtures, exposed wiring, corners cut everywhere. The Lindstrom's house looks impressive, but it's all surface. This house was built to last. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Can we go down to the lake? She asked. It's 20 degrees outside. I don't care. I want to see the water. We bundled up and walked down the path to the shoreline. The dock was covered in snow, and the lake was frozen solid, a vast white expanse stretching to the horizon. Rebecca stood at the edge of the dock, looking out at the stars reflected on the ice. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, she said. I thought so too. The first time I came here, the day I bought the place, I knew I had found something special. She turned to face me. Danny, I owe you an apology. Not just for tonight, but for years. For all the times I made you feel like you weren't enough. For all the comparisons and complaints. You deserved better. Yes, I did. Can you forgive me? I looked at her, my wife of 12 years, the mother of my children, standing on the dock of the house I had built for her, and I felt the crack inside me begin to heal. I can try, I said. But things have to change, Beck. I can't keep being measured against other people. I can't keep feeling like a disappointment in my own home. I know, and I promise, things will be different. She took my hand. Merry Christmas, Danny. Merry Christmas, Rebecca. We stood there on the dock, holding hands, watching the stars wheel overhead. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt hopeful about the future. We drove back home that night, arriving just after midnight. The kids had been put to bed by the grandparents, who were dozing on the couch when we walked in. We thanked them quietly and sent them home with promises to see them the next day for Christmas dinner. Then Rebecca and I sat down in the living room, by the lights of our modest Christmas tree, and talked. We talked until 4 in the morning, really talked, in a way we hadn't in years. We talked about our marriage, about our expectations, about the resentments that had built up over time. We talked about Heather Lindstrom, and why Rebecca felt so inferior. We talked about my work, about the pressures I faced, about the sacrifices I had made, and we talked about the future. I want us to spend summers at the lake house, Rebecca said. As a family, I want Lily and Ethan to grow up with those memories. That's what I want too. I want to stop comparing our life to other people. I know I say that a lot, but I mean it this time. Seeing that house, seeing what you built, it made me realize that I've been looking for happiness in the wrong places. Happiness isn't a lake house, Beck. It's not a fancy car or designer clothes. It's being grateful for what you have and the people who love you. I know that now. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Thank you for not giving up on me, for not giving up on us. I came close. At the party, when I heard what you said about me, I almost walked away. I'm glad you didn't. Me too. We fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in each other's arms, and woke up to the sound of our children thundering down the stairs. Santa came! Santa came! Lily and Ethan burst into the living room, their faces alight with excitement. They barely noticed us on the couch, too focused on the presents under the tree. Rebecca and I exchanged a smile, tired, but genuine, and got up to supervise the opening of gifts. It was a wonderful Christmas morning. The kids were delighted with their presents, and we all had breakfast together, pancakes and bacon and orange juice. Rebecca and I were exhausted but happy, floating on the high of our late-night reconciliation. Around noon, Rebecca's parents came over for dinner. I could tell they noticed something different between us, a warmth that had been missing for years. But they didn't say anything, just exchanged knowing glances and smiled. After dinner, while the adults were having coffee and the kids were playing outside in the snow, I made an announcement. So, I have some news. Rebecca and I have decided to buy a lake house. Rebecca's mother looked up, surprised. A lake house? Can you afford that? Actually, Rebecca said, we already have one. Danny's been building it for the past 6 years. The room went silent. I don't understand, her father said. You've been building a house for 6 years without telling anyone? It was supposed to be a surprise. a Christmas present for the family. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos I had taken the night before. The great room with its vaulted ceilings, the gourmet kitchen, the master suite, the view of the lake. Rebecca's mother's jaw dropped. Danny, this is incredible. Thank you. How much is something like this worth? I hesitated. The property is appraised at about $1. $3 million. More stunned silence. $1.3 million, Rebecca's father repeated. And you've just been sitting on this while living in a 2-bedroom bungalow? It's not about the money. It's about building something for my family, something that will last. Rebecca took my hand. Danny's always been like this, Dad. He doesn't show off. He doesn't brag. He just quietly does the work and lets the results speak for themselves. Her father looked at me with new respect. I have to say, Danny, I may have underestimated. A lot of people have, I said. I'm used to it. The rest of the day passed in a happy blur. The grandparents wanted to see more photos, ask more questions, hear the whole story of how I had found the property and renovated it. The kids were excited about having a lake house where they could swim and fish and have adventures. And through it all, Rebecca stayed close to me, her hand in mine, a smile on her face. For the first time in years, I felt like we were partners again. Not just cohabitants, not just co-parents, but actual partners who were building a life together. It was a good feeling. A week later, we received another invitation. Heather Lindstrom was hosting a New Year's Eve party at her Lake Vermilion. Black tie optional, champagne toast at midnight, the whole 9 yards. We should go, Rebecca said when she showed me the invitation. Really? After the last party? Yes. I want to show them what we have. I want them to know that Danny Erickson isn't just an electrician. He's a man who builds dreams. I was surprised by her enthusiasm. The old Rebecca would have dreaded this party, would have spent the whole time feeling inferior, but something had changed in her. Are you sure? I asked. Positive. And Danny, I want you to invite them to see our house. Our house. The lake house. It's only a few miles from theirs. We could have them over after the party. Show them what you built. I thought about it. Part of me resisted. I had built that house for my family, not for showing off to the Lindstroms. But another part of me wanted to see Heather's face when she realized that the electrician's wife had a bigger, better house than she did. Okay, I said, but we do it on our terms. No bragging, no competing. We just invite them over for coffee and let them see for themselves. Deal. On New Year's Eve, we dressed in our finest. I actually bought a new suit for the occasion and drove up to Lake Vermilion. The kids were staying with my mother, so it was just the two of us. The Lindstrom house was ablaze with lights as we pulled into the driveway. There were even more cars than before, luxury vehicles stretching down the road. Rebecca took a deep breath. You okay? I asked. Better than okay. I'm excited. We walked up to the front door, arm in arm. This time, when the hired help took our coats, I felt confident instead of out of place. The great room was packed with guests, all dressed in elegant evening wear. The jazz quartet was back, playing something upbeat. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Heather spotted us almost immediately and made her way over. Rebecca, Danny, I'm so glad you could make it. Thank you for inviting us, Rebecca said. Your home looks beautiful. Oh, thank you. We had the decorators in last week. They did a wonderful job. I looked around, noticing the decorations. They were impressive, but impersonal, the kind of thing you could buy from a catalog. Our house, by contrast, was filled with items I had chosen myself, each one meaningful. So, how was your Christmas? Do anything special? Rebecca glanced at me, a small smile on her. Actually, yes. Danny surprised me with the most incredible gift. Oh? What was it? A house. On the lake. Heather's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. A house? On Lake Vermilion? Yes. Danny's been building it for the past 6 years. It's just a few miles from here, actually. On Pine Point. Pine Point? Heather's voice had a slight edge now. That's quite an exclusive area. It is. We'd love to have you and Kevin over sometime. Maybe after the party tonight. If you're interested, we could show you around. I watched Heather's face as she processed this information. She was clearly thrown off balance, unable to reconcile the image of Danny the electrician with the reality of Danny the Pine Point property. That would be lovely, she finally said. I'll talk to Kevin. She excused herself and hurried away, probably to confirm that what Rebecca had said was true. That was fun, Rebecca whispered. You enjoyed that. I really did. We spent the next few hours mingling, something we had never done comfortably at these events before. But this time was different. When people asked what I did for a living, I told them proudly, I'm an electrician. I own my own company. And when they inevitably looked surprised, Rebecca would add, he also built us a lake house on Pine Point, from scratch. The reactions were priceless. The same people who had looked down their noses at us before were suddenly very interested in getting to know us better. At 11:30, Heather found us again. Kevin and I talked, and we'd love to see your place. If the invitation is still open. Of course, I said. We'll lead the way after the toast. At midnight, we all gathered in the great room for the champagne toast. Kevin Lindstrom gave a speech about gratitude and success, and looking forward to another blessed year. I caught Rebecca's eye during the speech and winked. After the toast, we collected our coats and headed out to the driveway. Heather and Kevin followed in their Mercedes. The drive to Pine Point took about 15 minutes. As we wound through the forest, I saw the headlights of the Mercedes in my rearview mirror. When we pulled into our driveway and the house came into view, I heard Rebecca gasp, not with surprise this time, but with pride. "It's even more beautiful than I remembered," she said. We parked and waited for the Lindstroms. When they got out of their car, I could see their faces clearly in the exterior lights. They were stunned. "Oh my God," Heather said. Danny, this is gorgeous. Thank you. Would you like to come inside?" I led them through the front door into the great room. The fire was burning. I had called ahead to the caretaker, and the house was warm and inviting. Heather walked slowly through the space, taking in every detail: the vaulted ceilings, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the custom stonework around the fireplace. "How long did you say you've been working on this?" Kevin asked. 6 years. Bought it as a foreclosure, mostly shell. Did most of the work myself." "Yourself? You mean you hired contractors?" "No, I mean, I did the work myself. Electrical, obviously. That's my trade. But also a lot of the carpentry, the finishing. Had some friends help with plumbing and HVAC. Kevin looked around with new respect. "That's incredible. I couldn't hang a picture frame without professional help." We gave them the full tour: the kitchen, the master suite, the home theater, the children's room. By the end, Heather was uncharacteristically quiet. "This is really something special," she finally said. "When you bought this place, what was the condition?" "Rough. Half-finished construction, exposed wiring, no working plumbing. The previous owner got in over his head. And now? Now it's worth about $1.3 million, give or take." Heather and Kevin exchanged glances. "We just paid $1.2 million for our family compound project," Kevin said. "For the land alone. The construction will cost another $1 million at least." I nodded. "I've seen the site. It's beautiful property. But you'll want to watch the contractors closely. A lot of guys out here cut corners. Would you be willing to consult? Keep an eye on things?" It wasn't what I had expected. Kevin Lindstrom, the successful surgeon, was asking me, the electrician, for advice. "I could do that," I said. "I'd be happy to help." We spent another hour talking, sitting by the fire, drinking coffee. By the time Heather and Kevin left, something had shifted. We weren't just acquaintances anymore. We were equals. After they drove away, Rebecca turned to me with a radiant smile. "Did you see their faces?" I did. They were so impressed. Heather couldn't stop staring at the kitchen. "It is a nice kitchen." She laughed and threw her arms around. "I love you, Danny Erickson. I love you so much." "I love you too." We stood there in the great room of the house I had built, holding each other as the fire crackled and the new year stretched out before us. For the first time in a long time, the future looked bright. The months that followed were a time of healing and growth. Rebecca kept her promise. She stopped comparing our life to others, stopped obsessing over social media, stopped measuring our success by the standards of people like Heather Lindstrom. Instead, she focused on what we had: a loving family, a successful business, and a beautiful lake house that was finally ready to be enjoyed. We moved up to Pine Point for the summer, starting in late May and planning to stay until Labor Day. I worked remotely when I could, and drove back to Duluth when I needed to be on site. Rebecca took a leave of absence from her job, we could afford it now, and devoted herself to being present with kids. Those months were magical. Lily and Ethan took to lake life like they were born to it. They learned to swim at the private beach, caught fish off the dock, explored the forest trails behind the house. In the evenings, we would all gather on the wraparound deck to watch the sunset, the sky turning shades of orange and purple that no photograph could capture. Rebecca and I grew closer than we had been in years. Without the distractions of our regular life, the commutes, the social obligations, the constant comparison to others, we rediscovered each other. We talked, really talked, about our dreams and fears and hopes for the future. We made love under the stars on the deck, laughing at our own recklessness. We fell in love all over again. The Lindstroms came by several times over the summer. Kevin had hired me as a consultant for his family compound project, and I spent a few hours each week reviewing plans and inspecting the work. It was good money, but more than that, it was satisfying to see my expertise valued. Heather and Rebecca became genuine friends, not the performative friendship they'd had before based on envy and competition, but a real connection. They would have coffee on our deck, watching the kids play, talking about nothing and everything. Heather confided that she often felt lonely, that Kevin worked so much, that all her money and possessions hadn't made her happy. "You're lucky," she told Rebecca one afternoon. "You have a husband who's present, who builds things for you with his own hands. Kevin can barely change a light bulb, Rebecca glanced at me across the deck and smiled. I know, she said. I'm very lucky. In July, we hosted a 4th of July party at the lake house. We invited family and friends, about 30 people in all, and spent the day swimming, boating, and grilling. As the sun set and the fireworks began over the lake, I looked around at the faces of the people I loved, my children, laughing and waving sparklers, my mother looking content and proud, Rebecca standing beside me with her arm around my waist. Happy? I asked her. Happier than I've ever been, she said, and I believed her. In August, I got a phone call that changed everything. I was out on the pontoon boat with the kids when my phone rang. It was Tom Hendricks. Danny, I've got an opportunity for you. Are you sitting down? I'm on a boat, Tom. What's going on? There's a developer from Minneapolis looking to buy properties on Lake Vermilion. He wants to build a luxury resort, high-end cabins, spa, the whole works. And he's very interested in Pine Point. Pine Point? That's residential. He's got connections on the county board. Word is he's going to get the zoning changed, and he's willing to pay top dollar for properties in his target area. Tom, I'm not selling. This is my family home. I know. But Danny, hear me out. He's offering $2.5 million for properties like yours. Cash. I nearly dropped the phone. $2.5 million? That's what he's paying the Hendersons on the other side of the point. They just accepted yesterday. But I built this house myself. I put 6 years of my life into it. I know. And that's why I'm calling you first, before he makes an official offer. I wanted you to have time to think about it. I thanked Tom and hung up, my mind reeling. $2.5 million. It was more money than I had ever imagined. With that much capital, I could expand Erickson Electric, maybe open a second location. I could pay off our house in Duluth, set up college funds for the kids, secure our financial future forever. But the house, the lake, the life we had built here. I didn't say anything to Rebecca that night. I needed time to process, to figure out what I really wanted. The next morning, I woke up early and walked down to the dock. The lake was calm, the water like glass, reflecting the pink sky of dawn. A loon called somewhere in the distance. I thought about my father. He had never owned anything like this. He had worked his whole life and died with almost nothing to his name. But he had been happy. He had been content. Was I content? Did I need $2, $5 million, or did I already have everything I need? I thought about Rebecca, about the transformation she had undergone over the past year. She had finally learned to appreciate what we had, to stop chasing after what others possessed. If I sold the house, would that undo everything? Would she slip back into her old patterns of comparison and envy? And I thought about Lily and Ethan. This was their summer home now. They had memories here, traditions. If I sold, I would be taking that away from them. By the time the sun had fully risen, I had made my decision. I called Tom back. I'm not selling, I told him. You can tell the developer to look elsewhere. Are you sure, Danny? That's a lot of money to walk away from. I'm sure. Some things are worth more than money. There's a pause. Your father would be proud of you, Tom said quietly. I hope so. I hung up and walked back to the house. Rebecca was in the kitchen making coffee. You were up early, she said. I had some thinking to do. I told her about the call from Tom, about the developer's offer, about my decision to decline. Rebecca listened without interrupting. When I finished, she set down her coffee cup and looked at me. I'm proud of you, she said. You're not disappointed? $2.5 million is a lot of money. Danny, 6 months ago, I would have jumped at an offer like I would have seen it as validation, as proof that we had made it. But now, she gestured out the window at the lake sparkling in the morning light. Now I understand that some things can't be measured in dollars. This house, this life we've built, it's priceless. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I took her in my arms and held her close. I love you. I love you too, Dan. More than I ever knew I could. 5 years have passed since that summer at the lake. I'm writing this from the wraparound deck of the Pine Point house, watching my children swim in the crystal clear water. Lily is 16 now, a beautiful young woman with her mother's auburn hair and my stubborn determination. Ethan is 14, tall and athletic, already talking about playing college baseball. Rebecca is inside preparing dinner. We're hosting a gathering tonight, family and friends, the people we love most. It's become an annual tradition, our summer celebration at the Erickson Electric has grown beyond anything I could have imagined. We have over 50 employees now, 2 offices, one in Duluth, one in the Twin Cities, and contracts worth tens of millions of dollars. I've been offered buyouts by larger companies several times, but I always decline. The business is part of my legacy, built with the same hands that built this house. Rebecca has changed too. She went back to school, earned a degree in interior design, and now runs a small but successful business helping people create beautiful homes. She says I inspired her. Watching me transform that foreclosure into a dream house showed her that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. We're happy. Not the performative happiness of social media posts, but the real, deep happiness that comes from knowing who you are and being grateful for what you have. The Lindstroms are still our friends, though our relationships have evolved. Kevin sold his practice last year and semi-retired. He spends most of his time at the lake now, fishing and golfing. Heather has mellowed considerably, no longer obsessed with keeping up appearances. Their family compound was completed 3 years ago, and it's impressive, but honestly, I still prefer our place. Tom Hendricks retired last year. I see him now and then, at the coffee shop in Tower or the marina where we both keep our boats. He always smiles when he sees me. "How's the house, Danny?" he'll ask. "Perfect," I'll say. "Absolutely perfect." And it is. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently. If Rebecca hadn't pushed me to go to that party. If I hadn't overheard her conversation on the deck. If I hadn't decided, in that moment of pain and frustration, to finally reveal my secret. Would we have continued to drift apart? Would our marriage have survived? Would my children have grown up in a broken home, shuttling between parents who couldn't stand each other? I'll never know. And honestly, I don't want to know, because the path we took, painful as it was, led us here, to this house, this family, this life. I think about that moment at Heather's party, when Rebecca said those words that cut so deep. "When will you ever have a lake home like her?" She didn't know then that I already had one. She didn't know that her electrician husband had been quietly building something extraordinary, one weekend at a time, for 6 long. But she knows now, and more importantly, she understands. She understands that success isn't measured by what you show the world. It's measured by what you build, brick by brick, board by board, day by day. The sun is setting over Lake Vermilion, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. My wife is calling me in for dinner. My children are laughing as they race each other to the dock. This is my life. This is my legacy, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.